Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. As always, if you do like this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. Now this is a much shorter video than what I'm used to doing, so I'm going to jump straight into it. I am testing out gouache for the very first time after watching Zeke's Lunchbox and another YouTuber, Myriam, whose name I can't pronounce, so I'll have her down below in the description. I really liked the effects that they were getting with gouache when they were using it, so I thought I would give it a try. Now, just a heads up, this film is not being sponsored in any way. It is me buying the product and giving my honest review. There's no sponsors in this piece. So I got the Reeves product, which I thought was an amazing price for what you get. So I spent £15 on 24 colours. It was a really good starter set. I was really pleased with the price of it. I think it's a good range of colours, although I would have liked some more pinks just because I really like pink, although you can easily mix your own. I just prefer using it straight out the bottle. It's a bit easier and quicker. Now, definitely some great pros with using gouache. Now, obviously this is my first time using it. I've never used gouache before, but I have to say the smoothness when you're using it on the paper is amazing. So I really like using acrylic. I use acrylic for my final pieces, but the problem that I have with acrylic is that it doesn't spread as easily as I would like. You have to use up quite a bit of paint on your paintbrush to be able to smooth it all out. Gouache, you don't have that issue. Gouache is really smooth and you can use it straight out the bottle, you can mix it with some water and that smooths it out even more. So I really like that versatility. The other thing that I love about it is it's really opaque. The colours are super vivid, which is so much better than watercolour. Now I like using watercolour for my sketchbook stuff when I'm testing out the colours that I want to use as a final piece. I think it's super helpful to do that. But I have to admit, this is much better because it's so much more vivid in colour. So that gives you a much better interpretation of how that piece is going to look when it's finally done, compared to going from watercolour to then finishing it in acrylic paint. So I have to admit, that is something that I love about it. It also layers really well, so similar to watercolour in the fact that you can do a layer and then let it dry and then do another layer over the top and you will see some of the colour that bleeds through. With acrylic paint you can't do that as easily, but with gouache you can. It's just it's much more vivid. So on the wing, when I'm doing the purple, I then go over the top a bit later on with a bit of orange, and you can still see that purple coming through, which is the effect that I wanted. So I was really pleased with that. I think that's something, it's really kind of sold it to me, the fact that it's so vibrant, it's so smooth, and it layers really well. In addition, it dries really quickly, which is what you expect from this, and it lasts for ages. So the paint out of the tubes lasts for ages. I was really impressed. I was a little bit concerned because there's such small tubes in the set that they weren't going to last that long. But I did tiny little drops of each colour so I could do the swatches, and that still lasted me for this Kingfisher piece, for another piece that I managed to do after this, and for a little bit more in my sketchbook, and I still had bits of paint left over. So it lasts really well. It's really easy to reactivate, unlike acrylic paint. So when acrylic paint dries, I find it a bit difficult to reactivate and reuse it, whereas watercolour obviously is super simple. Gouache is very similar. You just put a bit of water on top and it works. Just be careful the amount of water you're putting on. Similar to watercolour in the sense that more water you put on, the less opaque the colour is going to be. But that's pretty normal. The only downside I found to this is that when you're using it, now it could just be the paper I'm using, so please bear that in mind. But when you're using it with water, I notice it pools on top of the page, whereas a watercolour tends to absorb slightly more, so it's a bit easier for drying. The gouache tends to pool and just sit on top of the page, so you do have to be very careful while you're waiting for it to dry. But if you're using it straight out the tube, you don't have that issue. It's very similar to acrylic in that sense. Now, the other thing is, if you're layering your paint, again, that's fine, but just be careful with the amount of water you're using because you can accidentally reactivate the layer underneath, muddying your colours. So that's something I'm gonna definitely have to play around with a bit more to see the proper amount of water ratio before it reactivates everything underneath. But for what I was using on this, I didn't have that issue too much. It's just something I noticed. Overall, I think this is a great medium. It's a great in-between for watercolour and acrylic because you get the pros of both and hardly any negatives, which I think is brilliant. And I definitely think the Reeves product is great for first time. It's super cheap, which, as we know, I like cheap and cheerful product because that's my budget. Obviously I can't compare this to a more expensive brand, and maybe I will in the future if I'm able to, but for now, if it's something that you want to try, definitely give the Reeves product a go. I found it very good for what it does. The only thing I'm going to say is when you do get this product, do get yourself a palette, one that can close up so that you can reuse. I don't have a palette like that. I've only got the little flower palette, which is great for my acrylics because obviously I just clean it off when I'm done. But for my gouache, because I could keep reusing it, I did feel kind of bad that I was then having to wash all this usable paint away because I just couldn't keep it on there. So I'm definitely going to invest in a palette that closes up so I can reactivate it, and I definitely suggest you do that as well if this is something that you're interested in doing. Going forward, I'm definitely going to be using this for the final pieces that I do on paper. It's going to be replacing acrylic because I really like it. However, I don't think it will replace acrylic yet when I'm using canvas pieces, mainly because I'm not sure how well that will work on canvas, and I don't really want to waste the canvases that I buy because they are more expensive than the paper. But I will continue practicing with it, and when I do use it on canvas, I will let you guys know how it goes. But overall, I'm really pleased. I'm very happy that I definitely tried this product out. Its results is much better than expected, and I definitely recommend giving it a try if you're used to using watercolour or acrylic. It's definitely a medium worth trying. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to me ramble. I really hope this video was helpful, and if you want to see more of this in the future, please let me know. Otherwise, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.